Hello and welcome to Get Career Curious, the podcast that gives you the inside scoop on careers, what it takes to get there, and what the job's really like. Today's guest is extra special for me. Not only is Jesse Kurtz a 25-year veteran sportcaster, but he is also my baseball coach for most of my youth and is truly an influential person in my life. So I'm especially excited to share his journey here today with you guys. Welcome, Jesse. We're super excited to have you on the show. Feel free to just open up, telling us a little bit about yourself. For everyone who doesn't know, Jesse here was my coach for a long time growing up playing baseball. And then one of my best friends from home, Dad. So this is going to be a fun episode for me, and I know him. So Jesse, go ahead and take the floor.
First of all, honored to be on with you, Nolan. I think this is fantastic stuff. So if this helps out in any way for someone, I'm all in. I think it's really good stuff that you're doing. I've spent 25 years as a sportscaster. I've worked for CBS, Fox, ESPN, NFL Network. Currently, for the last 14 years, I've worked for the Mountain West Conference. We have a TV studio that we built here in Colorado Springs, and I create college sports content out of that studio and then do a lot of remote broadcasting in cities across the Mountain West. For the last 13 season, I'll enter my 14th season this fall. I'm one of the radio broadcasters for Air Force football. So I've seen every Air Force football game for the last 13 seasons, gets to travel with the team to away games, and so that's a ton of fun. And then I have two boys. As you mentioned, one of them is a junior in college like yourself, good friend Kellen, and then our youngest boy is a senior in high school here in Colorado Springs. Getting ready to join the college ranks here in a year just like you, Nolan. So yeah, very busy with work, but I don't feel like I work at all, so it's a good career.
So that's exciting to hear. We love when guests are pretty passionate about their careers. It always makes it a fun episode. I'll just start by opening up with saying, is this the job you always knew you wanted, or was your path more unexpected? How did you find that this was for you?
Yeah, so when I was young, there was two jobs that I wanted to do. One was being a marine biologist. I loved dolphins and whales and seals and the ocean and all those things. And then being a sportscaster. And I'm talking like elementary school age. And as I started looking at more books, I realized that marine biologists probably have to scuba dive, and I was out on that. I didn't want to be underwater that long, so I was like, okay, no marine biologist for me, and put everything towards sportscasting. My parents have videotapes and audio tapes of me elementary school age grabbing a microphone and saying, hi, I'm Jesse Kurtz. I'm at the Broncos football game, reporting live. So this is something that I always wanted to do. Went to college with that focus, and right when I was a freshman, started majoring in journalism and broadcasting, had a double major, and worked through college, through a college TV station, and got internships. But yeah, this was kind of my path from the get-go after I realized scuba diving would have had to been a part of the other track, and that was a no-go.
That's funny. So never been scuba diving either?
Nope, never will either. Nope. I do like snorkeling. Okay, I do like snorkeling. I like going out on boats. I love the ocean. But what I can't see beneath me, we'll leave it at that.
There we go.
Yeah.
Awesome. So would you say then this was a traditional round to the career, or did you pivot kind of around within the industry?
It's traditional. Those who want to get into sports broadcasting or broadcasting in general, journalism, it is the traditional route. Going to college, majoring in journalism. Some people major in English or something like that, but you get your practical world experience with internships. And that's kind of how you get your feet wet. You get contacts. I did 3 years of internships at CBS 4 in Denver, and then did another internship at a ABC affiliate in Sioux City, Iowa, which kind of led to my first job. But yeah, broadcasting, you have to have that practical real world experience. Just because you graduate college with a journalism degree doesn't necessarily always translate to a real world job. You need to parlay that with that practical world experience. I know a lot of people that graduated with a journalism degree didn't do that other stuff on the side, and they never cracked into the business. So it is a practical and school sort of route that you have to take to get into this business. Usually.
What was the biggest things you took out of your internships, and kind of what did they have you doing in different settings that kind of prepared you for after college?
Yeah, so when I was at CBS 4 in Denver, much bigger TV station, much bigger market, I worked on the assignment desk. I took the calls from viewers who might have tips. I took calls from reporters who were calling in to let the newsroom know where they were on their day, what they had come up with, kind of give the progress report, and then I would relay that to the producers. It wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do, but I got to see how a newsroom worked, and I had real world experience and had the access to those who had the job that I wanted. So when I wasn't doing my normal job, I would go pick their brain about how they got there, what they did, the good parts of the job, the bad parts of the job, all of those things. So I really understood how a newsroom worked and got an understanding of the job. Other internship, which came my senior year, I kind of took a leap of faith and moved to Sioux City, Iowa for a summer, small TV station. So I decided I'd like to get a little bit more practical, real world experience, hands-on. And I took a leap of faith, followed a college friend of mine to Sioux City, Iowa for the summer to intern at this ABC affiliate. And they realized real quick that I had more experience and maybe was more capable with my on-air acumen than many of the folks that they had already that were being paid. And so they put me on air every day. I basically worked as a reporter every single day for free, mind you, where they put me on air. And when I got done with the summer, they said, when you graduate in December, we want you right back here. So I basically had my job kind of secured. And then when I graduated in December, that internship parlayed into my first job, and I moved right back to Sioux City, Iowa, where I worked for an ABC affiliate for 2.5 years.
That's awesome. And like you mentioned a little bit in there, and I think it applies like super heavily with just college students in general, is like the networking aspect of all of that. Kind of what tips would you give for people trying to network their way into internships or from there to bigger firms and bigger jobs? How did you go about it? And what would you suggest to like your younger self?
Listen more than talk, right? It's easy when you're young and when you're cracking into the business, you know a lot, but you don't know everything by far. Be willing to listen more than you talk. Be assertive. When you get into those places, whether it be at a business firm, marketing, or at a TV station, most of the time people aren't going to come up to you and just offer all the information. They're busy, they're distracted, they got things to do. You have to be the one that's inquisitive and be the one that's a little bit more assertive to go ask those questions. Do you have time? Can we talk? Can I bend your ear about things? Read the room, because some of these people who have the jobs that you want, very successful people, very busy, sometimes it's not the right time. And so you kind of have to read the room as to, is this a good time? And maybe you ask, when is a good time that we can sit and talk about who you are, how you got there, what makes you tick, what you like about this job, what you don't like about this job, and you can share some information about you. But those are times to listen to them and not always a chance to sell yourself. There's time for that, right? There's time where you might pick your opportunity to say, I think I can do this and here's why. Use these more than these when you're out there learning about a job and networking to try to find your way through that path.
That's awesome. You're not the first guest to say that, which is great. I feel like it's a recurring thing that I'm learning is like, you're going to have time to impress yourself on paper and stuff versus when you're in person, just being able to ask great questions and absorb all of the wisdom you're getting is much more important than trying to make yourself look good in person all the time. So moving from that, what is your favorite part of the broadcasting job? And then what are some of the more challenging aspects that were kind of difficult to grow through, and what you learned from that?
The biggest challenges initially, right, were getting over the nerves and being afraid to make a mistake. It's a very public job, right? I make a mistake on air, it could be in front of hundreds to thousands to millions of people. Some of the football games that I did about halfway through my career, they were picked up by NFL Network, and there were probably millions of people watching. And that can be nerve-wracking, right? You don't want to make a mistake in front of people. I learned the more that I concentrated on trying not to make the mistakes, the more I was more apt to make those mistakes. And I learned the best way to not make mistakes in real time, and television is real time, right? There's no going back and fixing that. It's forever stamped live on air, was preparation. And there's no substitute for great preparation. And once I learned how to prepare and knew what the benchmark was for, okay, I think I'm prepared for this broadcast, then I started understanding what nerves were good nerves and what nerves should give me pause. Because I'm a big believer, and I think you probably heard me say this many times on the baseball field, that nerves are a good thing, right? Nerves can be very positive energy if channeled the right way. What I get worried about with some of the young broadcasters that I hire, and occasionally I get these, are the nerves where I realize I didn't prepare well enough. And if I'm not prepared, then those mistakes happen, then my credibility is lost. I feel like a fool, I look like a fool. So learning how to prepare, how to get around those times to make mistakes, and how to move on. Because at the end of the day, in any job, Nolan, you're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes on air. I just had a couple of shows in Las Vegas over the last couple of days where I was on air for 15 straight hours. 7.5 one day, 7.5 another. There were mistakes, but you learn to not dwell on those. You correct those in real time and then move on. We don't live mistake-free lives in anything we do, but understanding how to correct those and move on and be your best self afterwards, those are some things that I learned along the way. But I guess that all boils down to preparation is key in everything. If you're prepared, you're going to do a bang-up job with your job.
For sure. Yeah. And I totally get the whole nerves thing. I mean, just filming this podcast, like recording stuff, like it gets nerve wracking because you don't have like a full script. I can't imagine knowing that so many people are watching you. So I get the preparedness thing a lot. What were some of the things that you did to prepare and still do that help you out and get you locked in per se for whatever you're about to record?
I went back to what worked for me in college, and everybody has their own way of preparing for tests, right? Whether it's just reading something 1,000 times over, doing flashcards, writing it down, typing it out, making organized notes. I think you got to go back to what worked for you. So what I do typically is I come up with organized team capsules. So if I'm doing shows on a team, I might have little organized notes about something, about the running back room, if we're talking about football, and the wide receiver room, if we're doing baseball, player capsules. And I'll spend hours to days making these capsules and understanding where that information is. Because in my world, it comes across on air that, man, this guy or this girl knows a lot of what they're talking about. And that's true. You do preparation, but I've always said the key to my job when I'm on air is not necessarily to know everything. It's know how to find that information quickly. And I'm talking within seconds, right? I don't know all the stats of a wide receiver that just scored a touchdown. I don't know usually right away that that's his 5th touchdown in the last 3 games. But I do know where to find that information really quick, so it's seamless when we're talking about it on air, and I can go to that information, then it's seamless and it comes across in a very concise manner to the viewer at home where they're not distracted, they're entertained, and they're getting that information. So learning how to prepare, I think, goes back to what works for you, and mine was making organized notes. So when it was time to present that information, I knew exactly where to go to get it.
That's awesome. That's something you can apply in many things, like in school right now. Obviously, taking notes and stuff and just being able to organize your thoughts is huge.
Absolutely.
That's obviously one of the more challenging parts of the job. What would you say is one of the more enjoyable parts?
The enjoyable part are those nerves. And again, you've heard me say this, if you're nervous, that means you care. And that's great. People ask, do you get nervous doing this 25 years? Of course, absolutely. It means I care. The moment that I don't have those butterflies and I don't get those juices when the lights turn on, it's time to do something different. I enjoy when the game is over because you can reflect back on the 3-hour road that was and the twists and turns. Live sports is as good as it gets because it's really one of the only things now, when you watch in real time, nobody knows how it's going to play out. Like with television now, it's different than when I was a kid. Like you watched a big series, a sitcom or a television series, you couldn't go back and rewatch, right? You watched it in real time and everyone had the same reaction at the same time. Now with on demand and Netflix and all those things, people already know probably before they watched it. They've heard it on social media. Sports is not that way. We're all watching it in real time and have no idea what's about to happen next. And that's why it's so valuable right now in the television market, and networks are paying a lot of money for sports content, whether it's college football, college basketball, NFL, NBA, what have you. It's the only thing that we all have to watch in real time to see what plays out. we can't predict this, right? So the unpredictability is really, really cool. And I will say this, with my job at the Air Force Academy, there is nothing better than to go on the road to a rival's house, say Army or Navy, or even up to CU Boulder, a bowl game, and you win, and then you get to be on the team plane going home with the players, the coaches. That's the greatest feeling in the world. I didn't have anything to do with the game. I didn't win the game, but to be a part of that team and they make you part of that team and you pull off a big win and you get to celebrate on the way home on a plane, that's pretty fun.
I bet. That's awesome. I feel like I'm learning a ton. Like, as a just average TV and I watch a lot of sports, like, you kind of think you know what a broadcaster does, but you really don't. There's a lot of behind the scenes work. What would you say are some kind of misconceptions about the career, and how did you go about figuring that out and learning for yourself?
A really good question. One of the misconceptions is we just roll up to the game and do our job. My prep for a game usually starts, let's start with when we get home from a game. So if we get home from a game on Saturday night, I start my prep for the next weekend Sunday morning. Spend about 5 hours in the morning, kind of start organizing a chart, a template for the next game. And then I spend about 3-4 hours every single day working up to Saturday. So when it's go time on Saturday, we're ready to go. So it's kind of around the clock, little by little. It's not just roll up to the game and go. Oftentimes, especially at the highest level, it looks very glamorous. The time-consuming nature of the job can take a toll on you. I'll give you an example of a time where we get a little bit worn down. We have a road game for Air Force, let's just say it's San Diego State, right? And we kick off at 7 o'clock Pacific time. That's pretty standard. Night game, Dragon Stadium, Air Force, San Diego State, 7 o'clock. I live in the Mountain Time Zone, so that's 8 o'clock Mountain Time. Game is over, let's call it about 11:30 Mountain Time. We have a post-game show immediately after that lasts about 45 minutes. So now we're looking around 12:15 a.m. Mountain Time. Get on the bus to go to the plane. That's about 30 minutes. So now we got to load the plane at 1 a.m., finally get in the air about 1:30, got a 2-hour flight home, that's 3:30 a.m., get off the plane, drive home, get into bed at 5 a.m., and then wake up the next morning and start working on the next game. So glamour of the job is just, I suppose, being on the big screen or on the radio waves. But the stuff that goes into it, you have to absolutely love that grind if you're going to stay in it. A lot of people get weeded out in this business because that grind takes a toll, and I get it. It's taken a toll on me many, many times. But more times than not, I kind of like that grind. It kind of fuels me. I like the prep, but it's not as glamorous sometimes as it looks. But if you have a good broadcast, it makes it all worth it.
For sure. I mean, it's definitely interesting to hear because, like, as a prior athlete, like, I get the travel aspects, something like not a lot of people think about. So with that, like, how do you go about like dealing with the travel and being on the road so much when, you know, it's sports season, you have to be there?
Yeah. There are two things that I think outside of the work that you got to dive into that I think are super, super important for a job that is demanding time-wise, travel-wise. And that's 1, nutrition, and 2, get your body moving. I try to make it a point as often as I can, if not every day, to get in hotel gyms. I live in hotel gyms because it's easy when you're eating out on the road, you're eating in restaurants and you're not able to work out at your gym at home. So more than anything, taking care of your health is as big as anything, because that allows you, 1, to be good at your job because you feel good, and good with things at home to be present when you are home. So I can't stress that enough, and it took me a long time to understand that. I would often sit in my hotel room on game day if we're playing at 7 and just watch, you know, games that are leading up to that. I take an hour and a half out of that time now to get outside and walk, to hit the hotel gym, to get on the treadmill, lift some weights, what have you, to make sure that I'm at my physical and mental best. Because if not, I have found the hard way that everything else kind of starts going in a downward spiral. That's not helpful for anybody.
I think that's something I've gathered a little bit talking to a lot of people. It's just the lifestyle aspect of every career. It's different. It's like your hours are going to demand different things. And so it's always interesting to hear how you're able to make it work to where you're still living the lifestyle you want to live while being able to do your job the best you can. Moving from there, what do you think is the coolest thing about your job that people don't really know? Like, what's something about broadcasting that a guy like me who just watches TV doesn't get to understand, and probably won't because I'm not necessarily going in that industry, but many people are.
Yeah, getting to work with so many talented people that never get any credit. The amount of people that work on our broadcasts, from engineers, producers, to camera operators, to people who work in the control room, to get to learn their stories and be with them. They're the most fun people. Like the broadcasters out there, they look like, they're having a great time. They got the smiles and all that. I'll tell you that the funnest people that I work with and have an opportunity are the people that never are in front of the screen, and the amount of people that it takes to pull something like that off. In Las Vegas this last week, we had a crew of 8 that were in our control room that were making us look good, with punching up the right cameras, making sure the cameras were lit properly, to the camera operators that were on the set, to our floor manager, making sure that things, the collar was right, and all those things. Those people don't get any credit, but they love their job more than anyone. So I think those people that you never see, the amount of people that really go into broadcasting that never are on air for whatever reason. A lot of them don't want to be on air. They don't want the credit. But I think it's super awesome to be with those people who are selfless, who don't want any credit, who work way harder than I do, show up way earlier than I do, stay way later than I do to pull those things off.
That's great to hear. Like, I guess meeting all these different people, that's got to be one of the perks of the job for sure. You work pretty closely with the athletes too. What's that like? I mean, for me, that's interesting to think about it. You get to meet a lot of different athletes on different teams and pick their minds just for fun as a sports game like we are.
Yeah, it's an interesting place to get to in your career when you're no longer starstruck by the athletes. For a long time when I was young, I was starstruck by those people because they were people I grew up watching or idolizing. When you get to that point where they're human too and they deal with the same things, that's actually very humanizing for me to understand that, yeah, they're just like all of us. So, I mean, getting a chance to meet people like Joe Sakic in the NHL. I was starstruck early in my career because I loved Joe Sakic playing for the Avalanche, and I barely could open my mouth when I started talking to him. But then you start evolving, and you spend a lot of time around Derek Carr and Josh Allen, Leighton Vander Esch, Aaron Judge, all these guys who have come up through the Mountain West, and guys that I have spent a lot of time with. It is pretty cool to see them be just like all of us, right? That's pretty cool. But it's also very cool to spend some time and understand that the passion that they have for their jobs and the passion that they have to be the very best is also it's thrilling, and it's pretty inspiring, because those people are the elite of the elite at what they do, and it inspires me to try to be at my best, because if I'm going to be doing their games and they are who they are, I got to be at my best too. I'll tell you, I don't get starstruck that often anymore with athletes for all those reasons. I do still get starstruck with people that are my idols in this business. Meeting Mike Tirico was unbelievable. Kirk Herbstreit, Tom Rinaldi, those sorts of people are the people that I look to, and when I get a chance to meet them is a thrill for me, and sometimes I still get new starstruck there. But being around the athletes, that becomes more a part of the job, and it's pretty cool to see them just kind of be humans as well.
For sure. That's interesting to hear about, obviously the other broadcasters and announcers. When you're watching TV, what are you listening for, and how are you learning from listening to other broadcasters and trying to do your job better?
I still am trying to work on my personal style, and I fully anticipate that to be ever evolving for however I do this. So when I do watch broadcasts and sports, I do listen to the way that it is presented and what makes their style unique, and how could I maybe take a little bit of that for my style. and kind of piece together what ultimately becomes the way that I want to present things. I do pay attention to mistakes that I feel like they've made so I can learn from it. So those are very much learning opportunities for me when I'm watching broadcasts for all those reasons. Rarely do I watch the game like I used to, where I'm just watching for the score, who's winning. Rarely do I take that guard down. I watch it from a more granular level at the broadcast side rather than just watching the game for what it is. So I think you're right. I do watch it in a different way. It is my profession, and I'm trying to be better at my craft every single day. And that's the way that I can do it, right? Is watch those who are doing it at the highest of high levels. And frankly, I could learn from college broadcasters too, right? Just because these people are at the highest of high, those aren't the only people we can learn from. I like watching all broadcasts, whether it's a small market TV broadcast or a NFL Super Bowl. There are things to learn from all of those.
100%. And obviously, like from a view's perspective, like it makes a total difference, like whether if you're just looking the car or if you're watching the game, like the announcer can change so much about the experience, whether like it gets you excited out of your seat or not. And like obviously that changes who you're watching and all of that. So kind of pivoting more towards the industry side, I guess something that's so big like in college right now is just how many career fields are changing and evolving with AI and other things. So something I like to ask, is your career changing or evolving? And if so, like what do you anticipate it going to be for kind of the younger generation getting into that?
Yeah, no, it is evolving. I don't see, and I might eat my words here saying this, I don't necessarily see AI replacing my job, because I do feel like people enjoy the human aspect, right? They like humans talking to humans. But the way that we get our information for the broadcast is changing at a rapid pace. And look no further than like TrackMan in baseball. Yeah, I mean, we're getting spin rate, we're getting exit velocity, we're getting all of these metrics. And our challenge is finding a way to use those metrics and use AI and high-level technology that we have access to. How do we integrate them into the broadcast to make the experience better for the end user, whether it be for entertainment or information? That becomes the challenge, because, and you can't integrate everything. You have to kind of prioritize, this is what we need for this broadcast, or we don't necessarily need to spend the money on that or the time, the energy and effort, but finding a way to use the information that AI is spitting out at an incredible rate and using that to our advantage. I fully anticipate at some point the charts that I build for college football games that I broadcast, I still type that in and write it in by hand. There's going to come a time, and it probably already is here, and I haven't just come across it, where all that is automated. I just pick, hey, I need this information, this information, this information, and bam, it can populate it into my chart. It's allowed us to be more efficient, more accurate, but we got to think on our toes as to how best to use that information. And as communicators, professional communicators in the broadcast world, our challenge is, how do we take this complex information and boil it down into something that's digestible and understandable to someone who doesn't know a lot about that particular sport, but also don't dummy it down too much where someone who already knows feels like they're being talked down to, right? There's a balance there as a broadcaster. We're not talking down to people, but we're not talking over people's heads. We want to hit a large majority of people with our information. And that can be hard when you're getting a lot of technological information spit at you that maybe you're not even quite sure what it all means.
Yeah, I guess that leads me kind of to my next question. Like, do you think there's going to be some like newer roles emerging? I know that's always a question that comes up with industries changing. Do you think because of that, there's going to be more like experts in terms of like data analysis going into those fields?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're starting to see that stuff integrated in shows already. You see on College Game Day, they have a betting expert on there. What are the lines? Who's the hot pick? Who's the underdog? Like those sorts of things, having someone who understands that little niche market or that thing that kind of can set your broadcast apart from the others is big. So the technological stuff, someone that can take that information and present it very quickly, I think is very valuable. The biggest market for some of that stuff is someone who can take that information, turn it into an on-screen graphic that is very understandable and spit out in real time. That's where you can make a lot of money. You can be very valuable, is the on-screen presentation from those analytics into something that goes on screen that the broadcasters can then use. I think the AI world, the technological advances are finding ways to push humans out in many ways. And I said, I don't know that it happens with broadcasters, maybe in my career, but it could start replacing camera operators, right? Think about this. A chip in a baseball, some microchip that then is hit, the camera, the AI knows where that baseball is, and that's what follows it. There's not necessarily a human with a camera following it. Like, the camera follows the microchip out of the park. So those sorts of things are already here. They're already coming. So as humans, we got to find a way to make ourselves valuable in those so we're not losing jobs. But the technology of following things from a camera standpoint, robotic cameras, is already here. We use them all the time. And they're used in news studios where they already follow the action in a studio.
It's insane to think about. I mean, you see it not just on sports, but just everything right now seems to be advancing so quickly. What's something you hope to see like sooner in your career rather than later, and you think will be kind of make your job better in a way?
The technology in cameras has made everything better, and not necessarily the tracking on movement like baseballs, but just the crisp, the clear, the reach of the lenses give the end home viewer such a fantastic experience, and to be a part of that from the broadcasting world is really, really cool. The experience for you at home is what we're all in it for, right? If we're not doing a good presentation from a broadcasting side, then we've missed the boat. And the technology that is coming out with TVs, and I'm waiting for the day with the technological advances of VR where you're sitting at your couch. It feels like you're sitting in row 15 at Wrigley Field. That day is coming, and I'm excited for that. Maybe so that I'll be out of broadcasting where I could be that guy sitting and watching games. But that day is coming. We already have VR. It's not quite there where you have that fully integrated experience, but we've got some little portions of that gives us the idea that day is coming here sooner rather than later.
That's awesome. Well, Jesse, I really only got like 2 more questions for you, and one of them seems kind of silly, so I'm going to combine them and let you kind of take the floor and conclude it for yourself.
Sure.
But this question sort of just, if you could do it all over again, would you still choose this career path? And then I'll add to it, what's the best career insight that you would like to share with listeners who are looking to go into the broadcasting industry?
Yeah, I would do it all over again. I'm very fortunate in this path to have had some of the twists and turns in my career that have led me to that answer. Early in my career, when I was anchoring newscasts for TV affiliates, my job, I would leave the house around noon, be there at 5, 6, and 10, anchoring those newscasts, home by 11:30, say. But when I had young kids, it became very problematic because I would only see them early in the morning when they would get up. We'd have breakfast, put them on the bus, and I wouldn't see them until the next morning because our paths never crossed. And then weekends, I was doing games. This job that I have at the Mountain West was one of the greatest twists that kind of saved my broadcasting career, frankly, because it allowed me to be at home on most weekends. It allowed me certainly to be home at night for bath, bedtime, dinner time, helping with homework, being at baseball practice, and being very much involved with those sorts of things. So I would say I would do it all over if I knew that I would have that twist where eventually, after all that hard work of 15, 16 years of just grinding and working all nights and weekends, that would lead me to this place. It is personally the most fulfilling experience professionally for me because it's all I ever wanted to do. So I would absolutely do that all over again. Second part of your question was?
What's the best career insight that you'd like to share with those interested in the broadcasting industry?
Aside from taking care of yourself physically, whether it be physical activity, nutrition, and mentally, because I think that's the only way you can be your best self professionally and personally, I would say treating everybody on your path with respect. And that goes from the CEO of the company that you want to work for, your suite mate at your desk, to your co-anchor on the set, to the janitor that comes at night to clean up all the mess. It is wild to me how oftentimes we have in society those who are treated with the greatest respect are those who have the job or the money, right? I've seen this over 25 years, and I've tried to make it a point myself, and admittedly sometimes I fail here, and I want to be better at this along the way, but treating everybody with that respect and going overboard to those who are really grinding and doing the work that maybe you don't want to do or other people want to do. They're raising their hand and they're cleaning up, what have you. I really think that that's the best advice, career-wise or life advice, that I can give everyone. Everybody deserves respect until they don't. There are some people that ultimately, because of the way they're behaving, don't. But treating everybody with a smile, with a "how are you today," it goes a long way. And it's amazing and very fulfilling to hear back from those people years later and say, I always appreciated you coming to work with a smile and asking me how my day was, rather than that person is beneath me. They can do nothing for me, so I'm not going to waste my time, right? You need to treat those who can't do anything for you as well or better than others. And I'll tell you, it makes you a very happy person, and it also makes others happy, which is very fulfilling. So that's what I would say.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Get Career Curious. I hope you enjoyed getting a behind-the-scenes look at the world of sports broadcasting with Jesse Kurtz, a true pro and personal mentor of myself. His insights on preparation, dealing with nerves, and building respect in every aspect of your career are lessons that extend far beyond the broadcast field. If you found today's conversation valuable, please leave a review. Do you have a friend who loves sports or is considering a career in broadcasting? Please share this episode with them. This really helps us grow our community. Want more real talk about purpose-driven careers? Connect with us on social media or DM us with your career questions and stories. We'd be happy to help. Stay tuned for our next episode as we spotlight more inspiring paths and practical advice for building a career filled with joy and meaning. Until the next time, stay curious.